What's up, everybody? I'm wearing a Stacey Abrams hoodie, always repping Stacey, forever and always. I'm here today because it is Transgender Awareness Week, and I wanted to make a video about the basic things that everybody should know about transgender people. So first and foremost, what does transgender mean? Also short for trans. So if you hear, I'm going to interchange these. But transgender means somebody whose gender identity does not align with the sex that they were assigned at birth. And cisgender, on the other hand, means somebody whose gender identity does align with the sex that they were assigned at birth. I wanted to use this as an opportunity to educate and also dispel some of the myths that people have about transgender people. Number one, you can spot a trans person if you met one. You would know, you'd always know. There's no way that somebody would be trans and you didn't know it. That's just not true. You honestly can't tell by looking at a person whether they're trans or whether they're cis. So I've heard a lot of people be like, oh, I've never met a trans person before. And I'm like, well, that's probably not true. You just didn't know they were trans, but they are. It's operating under the assumption that all trans people look a certain way, which all trans people don't look a certain way. Next time you meet somebody, don't just assume that they're cisgender. Second myth. Trans people are trying to trick you into believing that they're cisgender. Trans people aren't out here to trick you and to try and deceive you. That's like the narrative that's been going around for all of time, is that transgender people are deceptive, that they're trying to trick everyone, that they're trying to just like get away with it, that they have to reveal that they're trans in order to all these different things that are not real. Trans people aren't trying to trick anyone. They're just trying to exist. We're just trying to exist. If we're changing our bodies, if we're taking hormones, if we're looking a certain way, it's because we are trying to do that for ourselves, whether that's to alleviate the dysphoria we feel around our gender, or whether that's to feel safe in a society that isn't really safe for trans folks. The problem is that you assumed everybody was cisgender, not that that person is transgender and you didn't realize it and so now they're deceptive. You go around telling everybody every day, hey, just so you know, I'm cisgender, blah, blah, blah. In the same way, trans folks don't need to go around every day telling every person they meet that they're trans. Myth number 3 is that trans people have to take hormones, they have to get gender confirmation surgery in order to be transgender. Well, actually, trans people don't need to have any of that in order to be trans. If somebody identifies outside of the sex that they were assigned at birth, then they're trans. It's not a matter of, oh, they weren't and now they are, that they started hormones, The only thing that they need to do is identify as transgender. So hormones and surgeries do not make anyone's transness more valid. Myth number 4. There are 2 types of transgender people. People who were assigned female at birth who identify as male, and people who were assigned male at birth who identify as female. That is a myth. While those things are true, that's not the only types of transgender people. Trans people have more than just that one story that we always hear about, oh, I was born in the wrong body and I knew since I was a child that I was not how I was supposed to be and blah, blah, blah. Now, is that a story that transgender people have? Absolutely, but it's not the only one. When it was Trans Awareness Week last year, I wasn't identifying as trans because of that narrative that oh, transness is this or that. When I really looked at the definition, I was like, it's identifying outside of the sex that you were assigned at birth or the gender that somebody assigned you at birth. And even at that point, I was identifying as gender fluid, and I still was like, oh, that doesn't make me trans enough because I'm not one of these binary trans people, or because I haven't been on hormones or haven't done any of this. And that was all kind of limiting my ability to understand who I was and accept that. And so the more I looked into it, I learned that like transgender is an umbrella term for all people who don't identify within the sex that they were assigned at birth, the gender that they were assigned at birth. So being without gender, having multiple genders, being between genders, all of that would categorize somebody as trans. I think I'm on myth number 5, which is all trans people are straight. And that's not necessarily the case. So gender and sexuality are unrelated. Like, one does not affect the other. Now, one does affect the label of another. So if a trans guy likes women, he would be straight. Now, there's so many people out there who are like, no, it's just a gay woman. Well, shut up. That person would identify as straight because their sexuality is based on their gender identity. Like, how they label it is based on their gender identity. Now, if the same trans man liked men, he would be gay. And he can be. There are gay trans men out there. And same with trans women, same with non-binary folks. Like, trans people can have any and every sexuality. My current partner used to identify as a lesbian, and then we started dating, and like, she got so confused about like how to identify and what to claim and all these different things. Was like, well, I used to be a lesbian, but now that I date you, like, and you're not a woman, like, you're obviously not a woman, like, how can I be a lesbian if we're dating? And I tried not to like influence her. I was like, I mean, that's all of this information is fact, but how you choose to label yourself is not my decision to make. That's your decision to make. You know what I mean? But now she started identifying just as queer, which was super cool and super validating for me to have a partner who's like not identifying as lesbian when she's dating somebody who's not a girl. Just some things to think about, like, when it comes to labels and identity and different things like that. It's not all as important as it seems to be. Number 6, I don't really know how to make this a myth, but I'm just going to put this one out as a fact. There are feminine trans men and there are masculine trans women, and that does not invalidate their transness, their gender identity. Gender expression and gender identity are two different things as well. So gender expression is how you like to put on your gender, put on your clothes, how you like to be perceived by the world, how you like, just like being like, oh, a tomboy is like a gender expression, but it doesn't change your gender identity. And like being a femme dude is like an expression if you want to wear like femme clothes and makeup, but that doesn't necessarily change their gender identity, which is how you feel and how you perceive your gender in your brain. So expression all has to do with like what you wear, what's on the outside. And people get very confused when they find out that there are trans men who like to wear makeup and get their nails done and grow their hair out and wear dresses and high heels. And there's nothing wrong with that, and that's actually something that is like not all that uncommon. And as well as like there are trans women who don't necessarily want to wear makeup and dresses and heels and all those things, but that doesn't change the fact that they're trans and that their gender identity is a certain way. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that your clothes don't make your gender identity, and anyone wearing whatever they want to doesn't invalidate their gender identity. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you all learned something. Leave a thumbs up if you learned something. Leave 2 thumbs up in the comment if you already knew everything and you're a rock star. I'm glad you know. If you're looking to find out more information about trans people, to expand your mind a little bit and to try and alleviate some of the ignorance that you might have, one thing I would recommend doing is following trans people on social media. Anywhere that you consume media and consume stories, like consume a lot of people's stories, consume trans people's stories, and read books written by trans people. Don't just read and consume media for people that represent you, that look like you, because limits your ability to understand what's going on in the world and what other people experience living in the same world that you do. So I'll leave links in the bio to some of my favorite people, the people that I've learned a lot from, and I hope you keep coming back to these videos and watching and sharing them with your communities so that we can all do a little better and be a little better for other people.